So I did some research to show the youth how we are organized in France, since I'm French, to show how youth is impacting elections, vote, and also the protests. So France has a well-known history of being the best, I think, country in Europe and probably the world at protesting since the French Revolution in 1789. And the youth has always been in front of like every kind of protest, for climate change, for elections, for even war outside of the countries. We've always been in front of every single one of the protests. And regarding the elections, we can see in France that most of the youth has been raised in the belief that when we were younger, we were raised in the belief that elections were more for adults, but we've seen with the rise of consciousness on the internet and social media that actually we had also a lot of power. So among those aged 18 to 24, it became increasingly important to vote. And during the 2022 presidential elections, we had like about 35 of young people participated against
35 million, you mean?
35%.
35%?
Yes, against way less the years before, yes.
Oh, so voting was more for adults?
It was more something that we felt that belonged to adults, yes, because the youth was...
What was the voting age in France?
It's 18 actually.
So when you turn 18, you know that you are now a voter?
Yes.
But you didn't vote?
No.
You didn't want to vote?
No, because we didn't feel that we had an impact on elections, actually. We didn't feel it.
You thought you were too few, or what?
It's a little bit more complex. So France has a really, like big past as a colonization, country and everything. And most of the youth is really like mixed. So we also have this issue with racism and castes. So most of us were not really represented, on the political programs. So we didn't feel like we belonged in political. Yes,
I get the
exactly.
point. I get the point. So because of the somewhat history of segregation,
exactly,
a certain group of people felt that they were French people, they're in Paris, but they are not part of it.
Exactly.
It belongs to some other people, the elite and all of that.
Exactly.
So they should go and vote.
Exactly.
But then what changed?
I think mostly because of, the awareness around we're all kind of the same and we're French, and also African people that comes from the diaspora and from, like parents and grandparents that came way before them, that actually we own our French education and our French identity, because I think it was more something about the identity before. And so because of the fact that we, around the suburbs of Paris and the cities and other cities in France, we started to be like a melting pot, So we started to talk with each other and see that there's no differences between us. And I think because of that...
So whereas the generation before you felt the difference.
Oh yes, 100%.
The generation later, as a result of what, internet connectivity?
Also, I think also, but also school, like everyone was just,
okay, school,
surrounded.
Mixing up in school.
Yeah, exactly.
Did the schools change over the years? Did they become more non-racial?
Yes, 100%.
Aha.
Yes.
So the schools that your parents could not attend,
yeah,
you were able to attend.
Yes.
Because it had become non-racial.
Yes, and also because I think most of the grandparents and the parents that we have really worked hard to have like a really, peaceful life in France. And so a lot of us have been raised in the awareness that we need to do good studies and we can afford good studies, and like there's no difference between other people, because the main issue was actually caste. It was money. The first issue was money, and the issue.
What did you say? Adjunct caste?
Yes, the social castes. Because I think that the worst.
So it's very interesting what you're saying. So the main difference was not color. It was money.
It was the two. Because of color, we couldn't get access to greater jobs. Now we can see black people in the government, which you couldn't see a couple of years ago. Even if it's still complicated, now it's possible. So we felt like it changed, and also on the internet, social media just connected us all. So we felt like we actually belong to France, I think. And so many people realized that we have the power. Like we definitely have the power because we're French. It's not just about color. Like we live in France. We were born in France.
And you understand it.
Of course.
You have studied it. You've been to good schools.
Yes.
Okay. So in 2022, you went out and made sure that the far right doesn't win.
Yes.
I
but
remember
it was
that.
complicated.
It's very, very complicated.
It was
Because they
complicated.
shocked everybody in the first round.
Yes.
Looked like they were going to win.
Yes.
And you were now torn between Macron, who you don't like,
Yes.
and the far right. That may be worse.
I didn't say that. Oh, sorry. No, it's
it,
almost
I get
like
it.
this. It's
Yeah.
like the Chirac and the Le Pen elections back in the days. It was kind of the same. It was really hard for French people, especially the youth, to vote because we knew that either way it was complicated. Macron he says that he's not from right, but he is. You know, so it's like it's very complicated.
He's center right.
Let's say that.
This is an interesting conversation. We have to come back to it next week, next Thursday. We'll come back to it.